So it's time to take. Let's see, I passed step one or not, and I'm stressing. My beard, I don't know. My beard, I had to cut it off for my mask, but then, so I'm down bad already. Please. Whew, I'm stressed, but you gotta get over it. Gotta get over it, man. It's kind of like a Schrodinger's cat thing where it's like, right now, technically I passed and I haven't failed, because I don't know. So, but all right, let's do it. There's only one way to find out. Use score report. Oh, page is blocked. Just click on the pop up. Oh, praise God. Oh, yes. We did it. Yes. Oh, yes. Thank God. Thank God. Thank you, Jesus. Oh, man. Let's go ahead. Let's look at this real quick. Thank God. Whew. Yes, sir. Yo, what's up, y'all? Ruben Davis, Future Doc here, and I'm super excited to announce that I passed step one. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Passed step one, and this is really big for me personally because if you've watched some of my previous videos, you know that I took the MCAT 3 times before I got the score that I wanted. And yes, the exam is pass fail, but to only have to take it one time is like a testament of the growth and perseverance that I've been able to get throughout this process, and really shows my growth and understanding of myself, and how I study and how I learn and all these different things, and my ability. So I'm just gonna pat myself on the back there and just celebrate that win and celebrate that growth and really recognize that. I think it's important for y'all to do that too. I kind of mentor a few pre-med students now, and tell them, I always tell them 1% better every day and celebrate the wins. So it's just me acknowledging that and celebrating the wins. But step one, man, what a test, what a journey of studying. I'm gonna just talk about the exam real quick. The exam itself, surprisingly to me, was not as hard as I thought it was gonna be. And I feel like that's because New World was like really hard. And I had a similar experience actually with the MCAT, where when I took the Blueprint course, I felt like their practice exams were like 1,000 times harder than the real exam. And I guess that's beneficial in a way, because it's like, once you get to the actual exam, it's like, oh, it feels a little bit easier. But sometimes you don't believe it. It's like there were certain answers on the test where I'm like, there's no way it's this simple, right? Like, am I missing something? And I, read it again. I'm like, no, it's definitely this. Like, and that felt good. It's 7 sections. What is it? 60 questions, I think, per section. You get an hour per section. And the first 5 sections, and me, I'm the person, I don't really take breaks. I did take a bathroom break, and I had some snacks. I had a Celsius, and I kind of drank a little bit and ate, but I really was kind of rolling. Breaks were pretty much 5 minutes for me, and I was finishing sections with about 5 minutes left, maybe more sometimes, depending, probably about 5 minutes on average. So I had a lot of time, but I really wasn't using it either. So I was pretty much rolling. But so in the first 5 sections, I felt pretty good. I was like, okay, there haven't been many questions I came into where it's like, I have no idea what this is, But then the last 2 sections, that stamina starts to decline a little bit. And I was like, I feel like I'm getting spanked right now. But even then, it was still not that many questions where I was like, I really don't know, There were some questions where I was like, yeah, I just have no idea what this is. And hopefully those were the test questions that they put in there, where they're just trying to, try out new questions that they won't actually grade you on. But for the most part, I felt really good about it. I was still nervous, because you just don't know. You gotta wait 2 weeks to find out. But yeah, I was really pleased to find that the exam itself wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be based off my practice. And I think one of the reasons why is because UWorld, the more you do it, and I would say my setting, I only do unused questions. So I didn't do like a mix of used and unused. I only did unused questions. And when you do that, the more you go, the more you get into the weeds, because that's basically all that's left at a certain point. And I know I didn't actually finish all of my UWorld because I got to a point where I'm like, this is all weeds. There's no way they're going to test me on this random microorganism, like on this random bacteria. There's no way. There's no way. And I wasn't doing as well on some of those weedy ones where I'm like, I feel like I have a good general knowledge. I feel like I'm able to understand the questions and break down the questions, but y'all starting to get into some stuff that I don't think they're gonna get into. So I just reset my UWorld, and I found I started performing way better. My scores immediately went up. Yes, because there were some questions that I did before, but I didn't remember them as far as like, oh, I remember what this answer is. I remember that it was B, blah, blah, blah. No, it was like, I know this answer. I was able to like, oh, they're talking about heart failure. Oh, it's your, whatever, blah, blah. I was able to actually know. I knew the information. And that's when I felt a little bit more confident. I will say, as far as my journey, I really didn't study before Dedicated. And if you watch any video on YouTube, they'll all say the same thing. Don't wait to study to Dedicated. But I was one of those people. My Dedicated study started January, end of January. And I scheduled my exam March 1st. But then I ended up moving it a week because I didn't feel like as confident. And some of that might have been some imposter syndrome, to be honest. But I don't know if did I use that in the right place there? Anyway, but some of that might have just been like just me psyching myself out, like because I took maybe 2 or 3 NBMEs, and they give you a percentage of like your likelihood to pass that one, and I didn't actually cross like 60%. I think my highest was like a 57% or something, maybe. Actually, no, I think the last one I took got up to like 76% or something like that. 76% chance that you'll pass step 1. I don't remember those numbers. Maybe I'll put them somewhere here and correct myself. But it wasn't like super duper high. But it was like I didn't do what I did for the MCAT, where I was taking an exam like every 3 days, like because I have to pay for these. I'm not about to do that. So basically, I took that exam where I still like the percentage wasn't as high as I wanted it to be. It's like my likelihood to pass, but I was like, I still feel good about it. I feel like there's just like I need to go over this little hump of reading the questions right and really understanding what the questions are asking. Like initially, it was my biggest struggle was content of like, because I have some of the content I hadn't seen for 2 years because I had to take a break. So I hadn't seen that content for 2 years. So I'm like reviewing microimmunology, biochem, all these different things that I haven't seen in a while. And I had to, refresh my mind, refresh my memory on these things. And, early on it was spanking me. But eventually with my strategy, and I already posted a video about my strategy, and clearly it is successful. Some minor things might have changed where I think I said I was primarily, I was using Pathoma a lot, but I actually ended up not using Pathoma at all, really. I mean, I used it in the beginning, but like then I really stopped using it. I didn't go through all of it. I mostly used First Aid and Anki. First Aid, Anki, and UWorld were like my main 3 resources, and then the NBME exams that I took. And I can talk about a little bit of that and later. Or even right now, I guess. The exam itself, much more straightforward than UWorld. The answer choices that I had, at least the exam I took, this is the exam I took, the exams change. You won't take the same one I took. So, definitely take this with a grain of salt and still do your due diligence. But the answer choices, much more straightforward, like to the point where I'm like, is this for real? Are you for real right now? Is it really this easy? And part of that is probably credited to my, the work that I put in for this, but part of that is probably just, UWorld is just, they designed it to be harder, it's just much more harder than the actual thing. As far as strategy, it didn't change that much from the video I put out. Primarily Anki. And I'm not a big Anki person, but I found that it really, really helped me this go around. I would recommend it. Like if you're struggling without flashcards or some sort of, recall system, I would say just go ahead and bite the bullet and do it and do Anki or flashcards, your own personal flashcards, however you want to do it, because it's the best way to review the stuff that you miss. And just make them, don't just do like rote facts, like create little vignettes in your Anki, like just use the vignettes that you miss, you know, change it up a little bit, or just put it directly on that card and use that. That's what I did. And that really helped me recognize diseases. You know, like it's one thing to know it, but it's another thing to recognize it in a vignette when you see it and immediately start creating that differential in your mind. So Anki, that's kind of how I used it, and that's how it helped me. So in UWorld was the practice of that and showing that Anki was really improving my ability to recognize, like, oh, this is diverticulitis. Oh, you know, this is Meckel's diverticulum, or, you know, this is heart failure. This is right side. This is left shunt, right shunt, right shunt, whatever. You know, so that was that. I'll say a big strategy tip, because the vignettes on UWorld, I mean, not on UWorld, on the actual exam are, I mean, short stories, full HBIs. And so a great strategy that I used was I read the first sentence, especially for the long ones, the really long ones. I read the first sentence, like, okay, why are they here? And then I'll skip to when they start talking about the physical exam, because they're pretty much going to reiterate everything they said in the beginning in the physical exam part, but just mostly talking, you know, in the medical jargon rather than the subjective of like what the patient was saying. So, and then that'll pretty much be all you need. And sometimes, and then you can just look at the labs, and then boom, and then the questions, right? So that was my approach. Sometimes I'd have to go back to, and I'd go back to verify, like, okay, I think it's this based off of the physical exam and stuff and the answer choices that they gave me, but let me go and verify, like, were they a smoker? You know, are they, you know, do they have a history of obesity or whatever, to, like, you know, further confirm what I feel like from the physical exam, because they might give you, you know, some social history aspect in the joint up there. Another thing, they loved questions about risk factors. So really know your risk factors, because they'll give you a vignette about a disease. You got to recognize the disease, and then they're going to be like, which one is the most significant risk factor? And they're going to give this patient every risk factor in the book. They're going to have a history of diabetes. They're going to have a family history of cancer. They're going to have smoking. They're going to be smoking for 1 pack a day, 10 years. You know what I'm saying? They're going to have like all these risk factors, and then they got to be like, which one is the most significant for this condition? So definitely don't ignore risk factors when you're studying. Lock those in, because they really honed on it, at least on my exam, really honed on it. I'll say there was very minimal micro. I thought it was going to be hella micro, but it was very minimal micro. But lots of risk factors, lots of sort of presenting the answer and sort of like how it would show up on histology, stuff like that. I'm trying to remember any other things or tips. Yeah, those are kind of the biggest thing I would say as far as resources that helped me the most. UWorld, obviously. The NBME exams are written a little bit more like the actual exam, so I do that practice. USMLE one that they give you, the free one, definitely do that, because that is what the exam's going to be like. Those long vignettes, all that type stuff. The way I studied the NBME exams were I literally went through every question, and even on the questions I got wrong and right, depending on if I know why I got it right or not, I'd make a Anki card based off that thing, and that's kind of how I started to build up my database of cards for me personally. Also, the rapid review in step 1, there's a rapid review deck that's pre-made that I would use that had a deck on clinical presentations, and I feel like that's like the biggest thing. Like, can you recognize what this disease is, and then do you know the aspects of it? And so, though that was kind of the big thing that I focused on, like clinical presentations. And that'll, I think, also carry over into your clinical experience as well. Like, can you recognize what's going on with patients, and can you give a differential and all these different things? So, yeah, everything else though, I feel like it's pretty subjective from like what you know your strengths and weaknesses are. Like, really just lean on that, lean on your personal experiences. Give yourself tools to review what you have been doing, and like, so you can see the growth, or if you can see when you hit a wall and reflect on, how can I get over this wall? What is holding me back? Is it content? Is it not understanding the questions, is not being able, like, I know the diseases, but can I not recognize them? Just lock in on those aspects, and that'll generally get you over that hump. This is me just kind of sharing my experience a little bit. If you have any specific questions, definitely leave them down in the comments. Message me. A lot of people message me. Join my Discord. You can message me directly. We can chat, talk about some different things, and you can connect with some other people who are in my Discord about their experience on their journey through med school, but also pre-med as well. Subscribe to the channel. I'll be trying to create lots of content for all of my rotations, starting with family medicine. I'm really gonna hold myself to it. But appreciate y'all tuning in. Future Doc out.